had a friend call me last night, go, hey, I'm going to send you some polls of Trump. He's a supporter of Trump. And he's like, look at this. And this is what he showed me, that Donald Trump's favorability among Republicans.
Yeah, members of his own party. We talked about a little bit of this yesterday.
An all-time high.
Well, right.
There you go.
Right?
In Republicans, yeah.
It's hit an all-time high. Now, he thought, let's just look at this. He thought that this would send people that watch this show and people who want Democrats to win into a spiral. And I said, dude, you don't understand. You think that Democrats are still scared of Donald Trump. No, they want him to win. You think you're owning the libs? You're only making libs as comfortable as if you were smoking a big bong in your front yard, playing hacky sack, wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt. Like, this is what they want. This is the natural order of things. Because look at this next poll, Willie, from the same group.
Yeah.
Do you want Trump to be president again? Look at the independent numbers. 29% yes, 68% no. I'm not exactly sure when it happened, Willie, but at some point, Donald Trump went from being the big bad wolf for liberals and making them like curl up in a fetal position under their desks. Like they didn't even like have the energy to go out and play hacky sack on the front lawns or in the street. At some point went from there to now where they're happy when he does well in Republican polls because they know it means they're going to win. They're not owning the libs. They're saying, here you go, libs. Here's the White House for 4 more years.
Yeah, whatever nerves progressives and Democrats may have about Joe Biden running for re-election are assuaged when they think about, hopefully it will be Donald Trump on the other side. Obviously, they don't want Donald Trump to be president again, but they believe that Joe Biden not only beat him once, but can beat him again because of the very numbers you're showing right there. You cannot win a national election with 29% support among independents. Maybe that changes over the next year and a half. There's a lot of road ahead of us and a lot of things can change. But you just can't win a general election, a national general election with 29% support among independents. And by the way, that Republican number isn't where he used to be either. 27% of Republicans may be looking around a little bit saying, I don't want this guy to be president. I may have taken a waiver on him once or twice, but I don't want to do it again. But I think you're right, Joe, to focus on that independent number. That's where presidential elections are won and lost.
Yeah, and that second poll was a Marist poll. Jonathan Lemire, though, this is the thing, again, and I know there are many Democrats who are concerned about Joe Biden. They think he's too old. They don't think he can do this. They don't think. You just go, though, and I keep saying it, because this election's not going to be won, and I want to get our other panelists in to talk about this because they'll agree. The election's not won across 50 states. It's literally won in the suburbs of Atlanta, which will never, and I never say never, will never go for Donald Trump again. The suburbs of Philadelphia, that will never, ever go for Donald Trump in 2024. The suburbs of Detroit, that will never go for Donald Trump. Wisconsin, never. Donald Trump, if nominated, he rebuilds that blue wall that we kept talking about during the Obama era, that blue wall in the Electoral College that Republicans would never be able to break. And why am I saying this so much at 6:06 in the morning in April of 2007? Because we know the die is cast when it comes to Donald Trump in these areas. Same thing with Arizona. The guy can't win there. It was a lot of these races were close. They've broken against him, and he's become more radicalized. And you look at these numbers, the very numbers, Jonathan, that he should have been building up, he's been tearing down. The damage is complete now.
Yeah, he won in 2016, of course, losing the popular vote, but he won because he was able to switch enough voters in the blue wall states, the Pennsylvania, the Wisconsin, the Michigan, those independent, those swing voters, and some disaffected Democrats who, perhaps were voting against Hillary Clinton, but decided, hey, let's give the new guy a chance here. Let's try for change. He did. Some of those voters that do, as you say, traditionally decide elections, some of them broke for Trump. At least enough of them broke for Trump in 2016 that he won that day. Those voters broke hard against him in 2020 because of his handling of the pandemic, because of his mismanagement, frankly, and the controversial headlines that he spewed nearly every day while in office. And the theory of the case here, certainly from the White House, from Democrats I speak to, is they have a really, really hard time seeing those voters breaking back to Trump in 24. And polling right there bears that out, that they're simply not going to give Trump and likely other Republicans that chance, considering how their positions are only growing more extreme on things like abortion and guns and schools and the like. So this is a race. If it's a Trump-Biden rematch, the White House feels really confident about it. It also negates the age issue, since Trump's only a couple years younger than Biden. It gets more complicated if the Republicans come to their senses, let's say, and nominate someone else. It gets more complicated. But right now, if it's Biden-Trump, the White House loves their chances.
And there's no evidence whatsoever that it's going to be someone else at this point, based on the polling and the way Ron DeSantis is, I guess it's a rollout or maybe a preview of his campaign is going so far. Susan Page, I can almost hear 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign staffers saying, be careful what you wish for. We wanted Donald Trump, too. But this is very different here 7 years later. This is a man who was in office for 4 years, who has been indicted once and could be indicted several more times before Election Day. So how is this campaign, the way it's setting up right now, how does this look different to you even than 2020 when these two guys ran against each other?
Well, I think it does look different. For one thing, Joe Biden will be running on his record of his first term, and we may also have a credible third-party candidate, a ticket running in some key states that could change some of the calculations that are making this landscape look pretty good for Joe Biden. Just one other thing to keep in mind: we don't know what's going to be happening with the economy as we head into this campaign, and we see this nervousness, this turmoil in the banking sector that may be increasing the possibility that we have a recession of some sort. So there are, elections are never straight lines, but I think it is correct, as Jonathan was saying, that the Democrats feel pretty good about where President Biden is at this moment of his launch.
Susan is so right. You never know what's going to happen between now and then. A recession could happen.
Democrats like to hand wring too. That's how it goes.
Oh well, it is what they do. But at the same time, again, anybody but Donald Trump would be better news for Republicans if they wanted to win. And Peter Baker, I mean, think about it. Think about Joe Biden wins in 2020. Since that time, you've had Donald Trump election denying. You've had January 6th. You've had him talking about terminating the Constitution. You've had him indicted in New York, an indictment in Georgia likely to come in the next few months, an indictment in the documents case likely to come. These are things, again, that break in the worst possible way for Republicans, because once again, with every one of those indictments, Donald Trump breaks the law, then he gets indicted, then his numbers go up in the Republican Party, while his numbers with independents go down. It is right now just a very toxic mix for Republicans who want to win in 2024.
Yeah, obviously a lot of Republicans are worried about exactly what you're saying. On paper, this doesn't look good for Republicans. But let's also remember there are some head-to-head matchup polls that don't look great for Democrats. I mean, right now, there are a couple of them actually showing Trump in a head-to-head matchup with Biden a point or two or a few points ahead. There are some showing Biden ahead by just a few points, but within the margin of error. This is a very competitive race right now, according to these matchup polls, even though on paper, as you say, maybe it shouldn't be. The logic of presidential politics would suggest that an indicted, twice impeached, defeated president who never once won a majority in the popular vote, never once had the support of a majority of Americans in any poll, a mainstream poll anyway, would not be competitive in an election, and yet he is within the margin of error, or even a couple points ahead in a number of these test polls so far. Now, it is April, the year before an election date. Anything can happen. More indictments, I think, change the dynamic. We'll see if Republicans still stick with him after 2, 3, 4 indictments. If it comes to that, that's a little different than Alvin Bragg's hush money indictment, which they have been able to brush off or even use to galvanize their supporters. We don't know that means Donald Trump could continue to do as well as he's doing. But the flip side is also true. If you're a Democrat, the worry you have is that something could happen late in the fall of 2024 that changes that dynamic in those blue states, as we're talking about. It didn't take very much to change things in 2016. The same thing could happen in 2024. Look what happened with Mitch McConnell. He trips, he falls, he's out of action for several weeks. He's 81 years old. President Biden is 80 years old. What if something were to happen in October of 2024 and suddenly the dynamic looks very different? So I would be very cautious about suggesting that we have any sense of how this race is going to go. We don't know about things like physical age. We don't know things about indictments. We don't know what's going to happen between now and November of next year.
Well, and again, Joe Biden is 80.
Yeah.
Donald Trump will be 77 fairly soon. So it's not like we're talking about a spring chicken here.
No, we're talking about
is in good shape.
A lot of moving factors potentially on both sides, to Peter's point.